What is up? What is up? So Mike Vanderpool, and I am a doer of things, nerd from way back. My background is in instructional design. I was a teacher for a long time. I taught design, communication, basically taught people how to communicate and get stuff done. And that's throughout my career, that's really where I've also found my space, right? Currently, I'm doing some digital marketing for a company, e-newsletter, social media, pictures, video, stuff like that. That's kind of how I came up. I helped quite a few folks develop and launch new products. The cat strap and the TV smart shelf are two that come to mind, right? Folks that had ideas, I helped them bring them to market. Some of those videos, my first videos I made back in the day, close to 1 million views on some of them, and which is pretty cool, considering I shot those like on a Sony GL2 camera way back when. Where am I at right now? I quit teaching a few years ago to pursue a startup become part of a startup company that was teaching people to code, teaching people about data engineering, teaching people about cloud computing, also teaching people about cybersecurity. So I have a well-rounded background in design and technology. Background also includes teaching people. Background also includes a variety of industries. Like I've been in the hospitality industry, automotive industry, startups, more than a few, the technical training, academia, the restaurants. I've helped people open up 3 or 4 pizzerias. Again, partially on the digital media side, but also heavily on kind of the operations side and how to be more efficient with getting stuff done. So where I'm at right now as a father of 3 and husband is just somebody who's trying to have fun and still be able to help other people. I love this baseball cards, football card stuff. It just is part of my youth. There's also lots of fun conversations to have in it and lots of stuff that I can do with teaching people. That's the one thing that I've found, especially like hanging out with at Card Purchaser, right? Card Purchaser on Twitter is the account that I started following when I got back into the game about a year ago. I have seen that there's a whole lot of people my age, 45, 46, 47, coming back into cards. And that's pretty cool because, right, everything that I've seen throughout my career of helping people and looking at businesses is that once we get to this point in our life, once anybody gets to the point in their life, like that 45 to 50, where either your kids are moving out or you've got more disposable income, we all revert back to that stuff that got us excited as kids. And for me, right, sports cards is part of that. Movies have always been a part of that. Video games definitely a part of that. So all those things are places right now where I'm creating content and trying to have fun. Where I'm at right now is I, as an instructor, as a teacher, as somebody who's helped people learn to do things, I think I've cracked the code on how to teach people stuff. I have found that when you're teaching anybody, adults, children, they say there's differences like andragogy and pedagogy, all these big words that PhD folks use to make themselves feel better about overpaying for their educations. At the end of the day, dude, it's freaking kindergarten, man. It's learning to cooperate with other people. It's learning to solve problems and having a little bit of fun along the way and not taking everything so freaking seriously. And that's what I love to do. That's what I love to teach. So I know from my experience in the world that as we move forward, there's 5 skills that you need to have. You have to be able to communicate effectively. You have to be able to collaborate. And those two are while they're coupled together, they are separate, right? Communicate and collaborate are two separate pieces. You have to be able to critically think. You have to be able to employ the design thinking methodology, and you have to be able to stand up and present in front of people. Those, I think, are the 5 what they'll call soft skills, but I'll call professional skills, right? Collaboration, communication, critical thinking, design thinking, and presentation. Now, on the other side of that, there's 5 more hard skills, technical skills that I think you have to not have all of, but at least a foundation in to be prepared for the future of work. All right. And that's going to be design, which couples with design thinking. So you've got design, you've got data, how data works, being data literate, understanding how to make decisions using data. You've got software development, because you need to know, even if you're not going to be a coder, Domino's is a software company that sells pizza, right? At the end of the day, there's more software in any of these businesses than anything else, even the brick and mortars. So you've got design, you've got data, you've got software development, cloud computing, and using cloud technologies and understanding how the cloud works, fundamental to everything. and then cybersecurity or security in general. So there's like two groups of 5, right? When it comes to 5 soft skills, professional skills, and 5 technical skills, that when you come together, if you have those, you will be able to adapt to anything. Like myself, for whatever reason, my path through life has been freaking whack. Graduated high school, wanted to be an architect, couldn't get into Lawrence Tech, so I had I kind of walked the earth for a little bit at community college. My first semester went there, majored in where we were going to drink that night, and got 1 C out of 10 classes. But I was working at a beer company or a packaging, whatever, beer distributor. So I was crushing beer cans and loading cars for a while, or loading trucks for a while that summer. And then in the fall, I was fortunate to find a job doing computer-aided drafting because I'd had that computer-aided drafting in high school. Longer story there, but at the end of the day, I fell into the automotive industry designing electrical control panels for pollution control equipment. Number one, because I'd had the AutoCAD skills. I got very lucky. A lot of this stuff in life has been luck. My ability or ignorance, not being afraid of computers, was been in front of computers. I was fortunate my mom brought a computer home very early. My school had computers. So I had the digital graphics, I had the computer skills, and then I also had like this curiosity. And I think that is what we need to make sure that we're cultivating in people. But everything I've ever seen, right? Once we lose that love of learning, you're F, dude. I don't know, or your kids. I mean, once they lose that love of learning, I don't know how you get that back without a whole lot of pain and struggle. So my ability to morph over time, automotive industry, was doing that for about 5 years, hated it. Wasn't what I wanted to do. I could do it, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. Always knew I wanted to go back to school and get my master's so I could teach. But I'd sold mortgages, worked for the hospitality industry, just made pizzas, like just did anything and everything along the way. Spent 7 years in academia, teaching community college, also adjuncting at a couple of 4-year institutions. Worked in the software coding bootcamp space, which is where I know refined a lot of the technical knowledge that I have. Also got to do some stuff in the instructional space that was kind of innovative and ahead of where we're at right now with K-12 and even higher ed are doing. And then that company, I quit higher ed. The startup I was with went under, and I had to reinvent myself again. So now I am helping to basically sell used machinery by figuring out how to automate some of the processes, make things faster, reduce some of the copy paste, but also just digital marketing, right? All about communication and managing attention. So as I've talked about and kind of thought about what we should be teaching people, data literacy is huge. Programmatic thinking is huge. Programmatic thinking, I'm going to say is kind of right around that critical thinking / design thinking space, except it's with the aspect of how computers solve problems mixed into it. But then there's another thing that just popped into my head here recently. We need to start thinking, learning, teaching attention literacy. We have to figure out and we have to understand and have awareness of how these effing devices, how that TV back in the day, this screen I'm looking at right now, the stuff on the side of the street, how they're all trying to get our attention to sell us shit. That's all they're trying to do, man. They're not trying to help you in any way, shape, or form. They are trying to sell you stuff. That's just the bottom line. And if we don't have that awareness as consumers, that's what's happening to us, even subconsciously, we then fall prey and may fall victim to some of that attention trickery that some of these companies are pulling with us, with our data. So having some data literacy, attention literacy, and being able to understand programmatic thinking, those things will allow you to flip the script, right? Not be on that consumer side of the model, but me more on the producer side. That's where I've got a kid who I swear is addicted to electronics, and I'm really working with them to understand and become a producer instead of a consumer, right? Two groups of people, the people that make shit and people that buy shit. If you're not the person that makes anything, then you're just buying shit and you're fucked. I don't know how else to put it. And yeah, I'm going to swear because at some point I get ramped up and that's why I get going. So I think that's enough about my background, right? Jerk of all trades, nerd of all trades, educator, learner, yada, yada. I made a movie, made a couple short films, I made a documentary about being a Detroit Lions fan. I used to produce TV shows on college campus. So that's where I got my video chops. I've helped 3-4 entrepreneurs get their businesses / products off the ground. So I've been everywhere. Where my heart has been the past 5 to 7 years, it was during my time in education. So working again at the community college, specifically out in the cornfields of Northwest Ohio, and getting to interact with kids who my first impression or my first thought was going to be, these kids just want to get the F out of Dodge because there's nothing in these cornfields for them when it comes to like creative or even something that's going to challenge them besides going and pressing buttons at a factory. I was really surprised to learn that most of them didn't want to leave. That's their home, right? And I could understand that perspective too. So I spent a good 5 years of my career trying to help kids develop the skills that they would need to be successful for the future of work, while also trying to get these businesses to understand that they're looking for solutions to their problems, but they're looking for a direct solution. What they need to really be looking for are people that they can hire to help them solve their problems, right? Like every company that I've talked to over the past 10 years can't find people to work and they're complaining about it. But what are they actually doing? Who internally, what teams do they have that are actually trying to solve that problem? Everybody's just making assumptions that the young kids don't want to work. Some of that's probably true. Just like when we were kids and we didn't want to work, there's some other stuff going on though too. And if you're not willing to have people involved in trying to solve that problem and are just going to complain about it, it's not going to get freaking solved. The other part of the equation is you look at some of these organizations, institutions, and just scan the room, and they'll complain about why, well, we need more young people involved. Well, there's not a young person in the room. How are you going to get a young person to come in if you can't even have the young people wanting to participate now, or even paying them to participate now? Which brought me to my point, which I often brought up to these companies. Hey, you want to be cool to some young people? Have some young people come in and just start doing social media for you. Have them learn about your business. And know what? Why don't you do this? Learn from them. That's the thing that kills me, man. Especially in higher ed. We've got these young kids, young, bright people who've got fresh perspectives, haven't been jaded and beat up by the world too much, haven't been siloed too much, haven't had everything and every decision they're ever going to make for the rest of their lives like etched inside of them already. Crazy experiences from all over the place, and then they don't listen to them. Higher ed doesn't listen to them. The businesses that are hiring them don't listen to them. They don't even let them talk before they make decisions for them. And that's why I've been up and down, left and right, every place I was teaching and talking to where young people are. Hey man, you gotta go find a way to get some young people into this space, even if you gotta pay them. So if you're out there, you're looking to engage young people, get them interested in what you're doing, take an interest in what they're doing, and then help them make and maintain social connections and find meaningful work. That's all most people really want, right? So, I'm long-winded, but bear with me. I'll edit this down if you don't want to pay attention to this whole thing. Through all of that, I started to really look at, okay, if we want to prepare kids for the future of work, when should we do that, right? Was it community college where I was at, where I was getting kids in, 18-year-olds in, who didn't know how to use Google Docs, didn't know the foundations of like version control or how to communicate, how to problem solve, how to stand up and present. Like it's just whack, dude. So I'm like, okay, community college, we got to attack a little bit earlier. High school kids, I went and presented to a bunch of them. I've talked to quite a few. They're just already, how do I say this the right way? They're very jaded and they're already put in their silos, and the amount of time, effort, and energy it would take to fix them, air quotes, is better served attacking the 8th graders, that 5th grade to 8th grade space. That's where I think our kids need the most help. That's where I think and this goes into it kind of like some of our 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, right, getting their stuff. Like it's at that point where they're about to go into this system that's going to want to filter them and define them, that we have to prepare them to be able to not resist that, but where that doesn't define them, right? They're going to go into the education system. K through 8 isn't as bad. K through 5 is better. K is great. 5 is high school 9 through 12 is gross as F. And I'll tell you this, college is getting almost worse. So I'll give you the story. You think about your job. Some of you probably get a checklist to do every day. Bing, 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 bing. There's your thing. There's your do. Right. Some part of my job has a checklist. I've got morning chores that I do as part of my job. But then the rest there's a whole bunch of variability. But I need to be able to react and think in my job. And all of the best jobs I've had where there's been the most upside potential and the most pay, I have had to be able to critically think and problem solve. I've had to deviate from a list of instructions when something came up. Well, our high schools, K-12 in general, has for decades, some would argue a century, been very good or been designed to train our kids to check off boxes. Eric Ward and I used to call some of the students at a boot camp, they were just professional box checkers, right? They were good at the school game. And school, K through 12, has been very good at that. During COVID, they got too good at it, where every single thing was sent home and regimented because that's just what we thought would help get kids through that phase of that period of 2 years of craziness that we lived through. So hopefully, most of us that are here lived through. I don't know if that makes any sense. Anyway, and then I went and taught at a 4-year institution, third-year students. So what? 22-year-old, 21-year-old kids. And these kids, they didn't have foundational skills of just how computers worked. Control-C, Control-V for copy-paste. You ask them to like do something that wasn't well-defined, and they struggled. And for years, I was teaching kids to be creative problem solvers. And I'd go into a classroom and be like, hey, I think we're going to do something. They don't know what it is, but we're going to figure it out, right? Because what I found was that the best students, the best earning potential came from your ability to figure shit out and stand up in front of people and convince them you know what you're talking about. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I had a student complain because things were loosey-goosey or not so well-defined, and went to the dean or whatever the person's title was at the time. I had a meeting with them, and what they told me scared the fuck out of me when it comes to the future of our kids. 4-year public institution, a teacher said to me, well, these kids were given, clear checklists to follow in high school. We need to be giving them that now too. And that's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard in my life, if I'm going to be honest. Our kids need to be ready for anything. The world is changing fast, folks. Very, very, very fast. Yes, Robert, thank you for the amen. I think when we were kids, they used to joke, right, about, oh, your parents went from, or your grandparents saw a horse and buggy to a car. What do you think their world was like? Dude, you're not going to be able to tell if you're fucking a robot or not within 10 years. Sorry. I'm going to have to mark this one not for kids for sure. But this technology is moving so fast, and we have so many people who do not have the foundational skills to deal with it in positions of power. Not just like our kids coming up, but in the world today, the decision makers in the world today are being asked to make decisions about shit they have no fucking clue what they're talking about or what's going on. I can tell you right now, there's not a person, maybe less than a handful of person in our government that truly understands AI. Most of them probably don't even know how to set styles in Google Sheets. I know because I've worked with some of them. I railed for a whole long time about teaching kids the stuff that they need to know. I've presented to every single organization in the state of Ohio that is supposed to help people learn and grow. And they ghost me. I've laid out curriculum. Hey, this is the curriculum that we should be teaching people of every age. Because Facts. The vast majority of schools in Ohio do not teach code. Hour of code doesn't count. I'm sorry, people. There are no qualified people to teach software development who will competently do it for the rate that our public school system is offering. So not only is there no, those two things go hand in hand, right? No code's being taught because they can't find people to teach it. They come up with this BS-ery curriculum and they'll give somebody, a teacher, half-hour course to teach tech. That's what your kids are getting for the future, folks. That's what your kids are getting for the future.